Welcome back, everybody. It's time to talk about the whole Capcom situation with Dragon's Dogma 2, and I'm pretty damn happy that we're doing this a few days after things really started to explode. We've been able to basically pick up the pieces and try to work out what is actually going on here. So, Dragon's Dogma 2. Capcom have done it again. They've released an absolutely incredible video game, and they have then absolutely botched it on the completely, like, the external, extraneous microtransactions and performance that I can say in my personal view is unacceptable for a product that is being released in the current market. They knew that these problems existed, they chose to release it anyway, and I do not believe that it is up to the standards that we should expect for a game with a budget such as this one, and certainly this is not what Dragon's Dogma 1 deserved. Dragon's Dogma 2 as a video game is what Dragon's Dogma 1 deserved, but as a piece of software, it is not. And insofar as the treatment by perhaps the executives at Capcom, well, it does not deserve that either. And unfortunately, the performance issues mean that this is an amazing case for Steam's refund policy. But the thing is, as a video game, here's what, of course, Matt from our team had to say. Performance in the city is so effing bad, man, but hitting a Minotaur in the mouth with a charged upward slash with a greatsword, nothing in a video game has ever felt so viscerally good. So today we're going to be talking about the decisions of executives. We're going to be talking about, microtransactions and that sort of thing. I do think we should keep in mind that the actual game developers who crafted this world, built these mechanics, did these characters, conceived of these systems, that they have done a stellar job, but the problem is they are being let down by Capcom's BS. Let's get into some of that. On Thursday, Capcom was named as the best publisher of 2023 by Metacritic, and in a rather sort of Cassandra type of oracle way, they said, "We've been pretty clear that the company's consistently good releases have been something to take note of. Now, if they can just get a handle on that post-launch monetization model, then things would be so much better." That's funny to me. Right now, I'm playing Resident Evil 4 Remake on professional difficulty. I'm having an absolute blast. I don't think about those microtransactions at all. I still enjoy the game a lot, but my eyes roll at just how self-defeating and pointless they are. When this came out on Steam, we had, well, as of the time of this screenshot, it's 40%. And look, those numbers are going up. The percentages are going up. But the performance issues, they really did damage things. It seems that pre-release people have been calling this out. Some reviewers have included it, others haven't. The games, basically, it is very, very CPU intensive in how it handles the NPCs, and a lot of the game's special sauce is those NPCs, and like even if you have, say, like a 14900K, you could still actually be having issues. It will be screaming when you go into a city. Some people are beginning to think like maybe this could be that this is a game made in, the RE engine, which does power the likes of, say, Resi 4 Remake. Hell, RE engine, like, you can play Resi 4 Remake, the new one with the very cool Leon, on your iPhone at 30 FPS, which is kind of shocking. It is a really impressive engine that has done many incredible things, but clearly we are having issues with this implementation. What is interesting here is that apparently at 1080p, which statistically speaking is the most common resolution on the Steam hardware survey, the performance floor actually is very low. Here is one tweet that's just calling out that. There's a lot of outrage about how Dragon's Dogma 2 struggles to run at 4K 60 ultra and cutting-edge hardware, but it runs nicely at 30 FPS 1080p on my ancient GTX 1060 6GB with an i5 8400 and 16GB of RAM. I think that matters to way more people. So I think it's worth, it is worth keeping that in mind, yes. I suppose I would just personally say, look, I just don't view 1080p 30 as being acceptable. Now, starting with a game like this, I do not expect that it should be running in handhelds. I'm not making that expectation. I'm just using this as an opportunity to say that with 1080p being such, the most common thing in Steam, 1080-60 should be every developer's, you want as many things to be able to do 1080-60 as possible. But I guess even the likes of, say, 720-60 or like 720, maybe 45 with a VRR display, that's actually worth all developers thinking about because of the rise of the handheld market. But anyway, these performance issues, obviously they vary from machine to machine, but basically you've got problems. And what's hilarious case is, I haven't even got to the more dramatic parts of today's story. There are other things that some people don't like. As an example, there is one save file in this game. That is an intentional design decision, basically. Now, this is a design decision that, it's a little bit like with a Dark Souls game. People sometimes want an easy mode on Dark Souls. But the easy mode is to use sword and board. It's all built into the design, but some people still want an easy mode, and the developers have pretty much been like, nope, this is our intended design, that's it. In this case, they're doing that, but rather than, difficulty here, it is with how the save file is. It's an intentional design decision, which does mean we can agree or disagree, but it is something that they put in, knowingly on purpose. Also, de novo, some people have been blaming it for performance issues. Capcom themselves are actually admitting that it is the NPCs. But then, of course, one of the biggest complaints is microtransactions in a big flagship $70 game, and this happened again. So yes, Dragon's Dogma 2 has got the Capcom special. 21 delightful, beautiful, and not high value at all, actually, microtransactions. You can get your Explorer's Camping Kit. It weighs 5.5 kilograms. It does help you hyper-optimize the weight of your characters a little bit more, which is important in this game, but is it, needed? No. Do you get plenty of camping kits in the game? Yes, absolutely. Is it a consumable? No. And continually as you go through this, you see things that on face value look awful, like what people have been saying about the fast travel system. However, that's fast travel stuff, but you kind of unlock, you get stuff there in the first 30 to 60 minutes. It's very much when you go through these reminding me of the Resi 4 ones, where it's no, that friction is a part of the game design. Sorry, it actually does grind my gears a little bit because I look at all of these and I basically think oh my god, these are offensive. And it's interesting how microtransactions can be offensive. Maybe they could be so powerful they feel pay to win. Maybe they are so bad value that you almost feel offended you've been asked to pay for it. I remember people talking about the noob trap in Destiny 2, where they got a lot of kickback over a starter bundle, and the starter bundle basically was such a bad value that people were calling it a noob trap. And when you look through so many of these, they look like noob traps. It is absolutely insane. It's just 89p, £1.70, $2.45. It's very different from the usual $25 skins, but basically what's happened here is what they have done in just about everything. This is not new for Dragon's Dogma 2, and it very much does not appear to be implemented in a way that is worse than sort of any other major Capcom game recently. But Dragon's Dogma 2, to some people, is the next Elden Ring, And I know it's a bit trite to talk about those two games like that, but I think you can absolutely see the overlap in appeal, and I think that this, Elden Ring will have opened a genre up to so many people, and a lot of those people will be interested in this experience. But basically, my point with these microtransactions is they are offensive in how bad value they are, in how tacked on they are, in how cynical they feel. And we're essentially in a situation where FromSoft don't have to put these things in. They're published by, is it Bandai Namco or Namco Bandai? I think it's the latter. I forgot. They switched it around. But they didn't have to do this. Why do you have to do it? Are these really the way you're going to make money on Dragon's Dogma 2? Especially when we're in a world where we know that these Capcom, big Capcom $70 games, they ship millions of copies at $70. This is a solid winner. None of this was needed. And for me, that is the bit that is just so infuriating. I don't think this ruins the game. You can play the game and enjoy it and not think about any of this. I would almost recommend that you do that because it's a really great game. Those designers made an incredible world, incredible combat mechanics, lots of just amazing innovation. And I do think that if that seems up your alley, you are well within your rights to pick up the game and to enjoy it, because I think it could enrich your life, your gaming experience, be a really great part of your hobby. Don't let these microtransactions stop you, but I would say don't participate in them and make your voice heard that you do not like them. And, absolutely do not buy them under any circumstances. Let's not give them any more ideas. It's one of those things. I would love to say we should all boycott this thing exactly, and I suppose on a hyper principle sort of thing, yeah, I could totally see the argument for that, but pragmatically, I sort of care about games and playing them more, so I'm definitely not going to begrudge people for doing this. And look, it's almost the same thing of oh yeah, well, you criticize Nestle, but they own that water brand you bought yesterday. It's one of those things when these very large megacorps own the studios that produce the games. It's always going to be hard to, get the output of our industry in a way that is free from the bad things that are done by the corporations that own the studios. That separation between corporate level, studio level, that's the thing that I really, I see it as a part of our mission here to be like, listen, game developers are making great games, and it is infuriating how these bloody suits go in and ruin it all. Of course, you've probably seen that stuff in, GDC with Sven of Larian basically being like, oh my god, these greedy bastards, please stop being greedy bastards. We can just make good games and it can all be good. But I have not even talked about the drama yet. Before that, though, I just want to say, hey, look, here's the deal. Bellular.games. That is the #1 way to support what we do. And instead of rift crystals or something like that, what you'll get in return is unique content. You'll get loading screen, which we publish every day. You see things like this. Like actually what I am looking at now, the research report produced by my team. You'll actually get those before I even get them. And that's the whole point of this channel. We gather stuff all around the internet. We take extra time to do research, to do due diligence. If something seems too good to be true, we will dedicate time into properly looking through that. We really try to not go off half-cocked. And that does sometimes mean we're a bit later to things, but I'd rather be later and right. And really with the excellent team who helped me in running this channel. I mean, hey, I just love what's going on here. Thank you to everybody who has supported us over there. If you want to see our videos early, want to see them ad-free, want to get exclusive content and hang out with us over on our members Discord, the link's down below. Now then, let's talk. These don't seem to be quite as egregious as the weapon upgrade options in Resident Evil 4, just because of how tightly those are wound into the game design of Resi 4. The Resi 4 ones are so egregious that anyone with a brain would never get them, so to speak. These are far more, at least with the Rift Crystals, it's more like the orb packages for Devil May Cry 5, and those give you immediate access to a lot of items that are otherwise accessible. And I suppose that means it's a little bit closer to some of the experimentation and innovation that our good friends at Ubisoft have done in the industry. Oh, we love Ubisoft. Oh, Ubisoft. How frustrating. By the way, Racevik, I forget, is that how you pronounce his surname? He did a really, really good video on Ubisoft, recently, and I recommend you check it out. But anyway, that's the thing that's been really, really annoying with this. It's that they are basically just a bit of an insult, but it is essentially the same thing that they've done with Devil May Cry 5, the same thing that they've done with Resi 4. And I think what is absolutely insane to me is this it just doesn't make sense. I can't see people buying any of these things. It does seem almost like some dipshit executive is just, mandating that they're there because that's the thing that looks good. I would kill to get some numbers on how many people playing Devil May Cry 5 were just sitting there buying heaps of orbs, because that seems absolutely insane to me. But as for the Ubisoft thing, we're not as egregious as, say, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Assassin's Creed Odyssey released with resource balancing that basically felt like you had to purchase the balance patch because you could buy a 50% XP and gold, booster thing. They got a humongous kickback against that, and they eventually did, sort of take it back. But that was one of those things where it was like, man, it was just like with Battlefront 2. That was the time when we, the people who actually enjoy this hobby, all spoke out. We said no, and Ubisoft evidently felt like they couldn't do it. So it's annoying that these kind of things are happening, especially in a sort of a single player game, like this. Ultimately, we think about, say, the discourse going on with Helldivers 2, where it's got the more horizontal side grade stuff that, that are there, that, obviously they have their cosmetic stuff, but with the premium currency there, you can get it in game, or you can get it a bit faster by buying it. But really, we're looking here, right? Even if you're looking at, say, Helldivers 2, I mean, that's a $40 game that's got ongoing, the ongoing development and all of that, whereas this is a $70 game that, in terms of optics, had $40 of DLC in day one. That's just weird. Now, let's get into some of the dramas. Did reviewers, did content creators know about this beforehand? This has been an absolutely explosive topic on the internet. It really has been. There's been accusations of paid reviews. So essentially, to try and boil all this down, some people were saying, look, these microtransactions are here at launch. I had no idea. We didn't know. And, there's sort of feigning ignorance on it. And then people are saying, well, you didn't tell us in your review. This is a paid review. Now, the thing is, broadly speaking, I'm sure there are instances of bad people doing bad things, but paid reviews in the industry right now, it is just not a thing. It is not like what it was in, say, the early 2000s, where there are some absolutely ludicrous, insane stories. Certainly, now that's the currency of the United States dollar. There could and I think would also be the currency of influence, and that can be a thing that can be relevant here, but it doesn't really seem like there's any pay-per-view things going on here. It does seem, though, that there's a lot of chaos, a lot of misinformation, and just pure madness in general. So basically, here's what happened. Some people said that they had absolutely no idea that Capcom didn't tell them about these microtransactions. Then other people who were in the same batch of reviewers said, look at the email you were sent that we were all sent. In the fact sheet or whatever it is, Capcom says that there will be day one DLC. And that's the bit that's kind of interesting. Now, I've seen people talk about that. Believe Force, I think it was Force. He didn't mention it in his review because basically those publisher fact sheets, he was like, listen, those fact sheets are, they basically say nothing. I basically never really look at them, played the thing, didn't know about it, and what happened. But he did apologize and say that he will look through those things again in the future. I'll certainly say, yeah, you are sent fact sheets by the marketing people or a PR firm working for a company like this, and the fact sheet is useless. It is the most surface level stuff, I suppose, to borrow on what people would joke about. It's basically there to help the people who need the journalism mode difficulty level. If I was to, throw in with the memes. Basically, this just seems like a whole bunch of misunderstandings that led to a messy situation. The reviewers had access to that information, and it is unfortunate that did not play more of a role in more reviews. It does seem that this was mostly down to human error and misunderstanding. And in a case like that, I'm willing to say hey, own the mistake, say, sorry, that's my L. Didn't look at the thing, but I did have access to the thing. Seemingly people have been showing screenshots of their emails and stuff. I mean, in that case, all right, that's cool. We're cool. Everyone makes mistakes. But it's the doubling down and all that silly stuff that's obviously unfortunate. Then there's the side of the performance stuff. Some people did talk about performance in reviews, some didn't, and that's actually an ongoing point. What is a game review? Because to some people, a game review is basically like the review of a movie. It's not really being reviewed as a value proposition. It's not really being reviewed as a piece of software. It's more of really an art review, sort of in a way. So do you want your review to be a review that is timeless about this piece of art that is being created by, artists? And, personally, that's what I'm the most interested in. But I also personally do think that there just needs to be the consumer advocacy box. Here's shit you really should know that I experienced. So I think it should be possible that somebody should be able to give this game a 9 out of 10, but have an asterisk on it. And that asterisk is, it's busted at launch. The performance is terrible. Buyer beware. I just think that we need to have systems that are better at handling that. And one of the challenges that we have with the review aggregators is all you get is the score. So if a site gives something 9 out of 10, but also has in big red text, this is not something that you should consider buying if these performance issues, if you think those will be a problem, that'll just be gobbled up as a 9 out of 10. And that's the thing that can be a little bit of, a problem. So on the question of, did reviewers and content creators know about this beforehand? Currently, the signs point to yes, but they're clearly, there's not enough criticism that came through for the general audience to absorb that, which does mean some of this stuff felt like a surprise and a betrayal. This is a basic exercise in editorial fiat for those creators. Reviews cover things ultimately that they think are important depending on what their individual focus is. This is why I would recommend that you do not look at websites, that you look at individual reviewers who you trust, where you understand how they play video games and if that will match up. As an example, I like a lot of Skill Up's reviews, even though I disagree with him in some aspects of some games, but I understand where he comes from, and that actually makes his opinion really, really valuable to me. And I suppose we can look at one of the last times that this sort of thing was ran, and that was with Devil May Cry 5, right? You could probably count in one hand the number of reviews that mentioned the orbs as purchasable DLC in Devil May Cry 5, despite that game being $60. Of course, 70's the new 60. Now, Capcom, presumably spurred on by these complaints, have actually released a statement on all of the things that players have been complaining about. So let's give Capcom their day in court and see what they had to say. First up, they do apologize for any inconvenience. Does seem like everyone was inconvenienced with that performance, but they say they'll be dealing with any crashes or bugs as they start patching, and they'll be adding a way to restart the game easily as well. They explained that the DLC items can be bought or found in-game, which is actually on the DLC descriptions, as well as repeating their stance that the CPU bottleneck and the lack of impact that the GPU-based fixes are having, basically just saying it's a CPU bottleneck, and as I'm sure you know in many instances, like it doesn't matter if you have a 4090 if your, I don't know, AMD 6300 Black Edition is still in there. I mean, I know the 6300 Black Edition was a powerful wee boy, but he's a wee bit old now, isn't he? Anyhow, they do basically know that these problems are there, and ultimately, to me, shouldn't have launched. You guys, you guys had the power as first-party publisher and developer. Like, there's times I can more understand a situation like this happening if it's a publisher and a third-party dev, and they just have that contract. But when you're the publisher and you literally own the studio, there is no excuse to do something like this, other than, of course, the lovely quarterly earnings report, which does a lot of damage. I think one of the great examples of that is with City Skylines. Remember that? City Skylines 2 shouldn't have came out when it did, and all signs really point towards them having to, fill up a Lamplighters League-sized hole in their finances, because they basically had to write the game's whole thing down because it was a massive failure. Crazy, annoying situation. If you want to learn about that more, you can check it out here. I think it would be a great thing to follow up this video with, for another example of how developers who come to this industry with passion, with talent, bursting with creativity, wanting to make amazing game experiences, get let down by suits, key decision makers. I hope you found this video well, and I hope that in time, Dragon's Dogma 2 will be on a little bit of a sale, that it will have really good performance, and that you will be able to have a great value proposition on what is, by all accounts, as a video game, absolutely peak.